Good morning, colleagues. Once again,
Good morning. Good
we
morning.
greeted those who were here earlier. Hope you're having a good day so far,
No,
and I rest of the day will go well for
it's
you.
not going so well. Not going so well.
Yeah, so, type.
Charmaine, you went out and not hearing you now.
Arville, you are the person saying that the day not going so well. What
Yes.
happening?
Because I have like this and I had a class 8 to 9 this morning and I'm just having breakfast.
So your class ended, or you had to
Yeah, yeah, man, the class ended.
Oh, you're having breakfast. That is good. I need a little of your breakfast. I haven't had breakfast as yet. I just got mine.
Well, there you go. Isn't he a fortunate person?
There you go.
Isn't he a fortunate person? He should say nothing. He doesn't know what happened to his other colleagues. So, good morning, colleagues. Well, that was your icebreaker. That was your icebreaker.
Thanks for that,
Asking everyone
Orville.
to
You're welcome.
So, colleagues, this is Charmaine McKenzie, and today we have Michelle Stewart McCoy as well. Michelle Stewart McCoy is not new to the Mona campus at all, but she has returned to settle as the educational technologist. And I am so happy to have Michelle. I can't tell anybody how happy I am. So Michelle is having her first outing since she returned. This is her first outing. We are doing this presentation today and it will be repeated on Wednesday because we are aware that, you know, the notice was kind of short, and so we know that many people wouldn't have been able to make it today. So this will be done again on Wednesday, and tomorrow Michelle will lead on a session on using the tools, using our VLE and Blackboard. She's taking it from the teaching angle. Now, we know that you know quite a bit by now about how to, you know, set up a discussion, how to post a picture, how to do things like that. Michelle is taking it from the pedagogical angle. Thursday, that will be repeated for those who can't make tomorrow. So I know that the faculty office will send out a notice and so on about tomorrow's session and Thursdays. But if you encounter any of your colleagues who missed today and who may not check their email as frequently as you do, and we should give you prizes for checking your mail so often, you please ask them to check and to come along, because this is the start of working with the Faculty of Social Sciences to bring the largest faculty on the campus up to speed and to encourage confidence and so on. I see that Sandra says she's looking to learn as much as she can. She wants to be the best virtual teacher that she can be. And so we will work towards that for the entire faculty and for the campus. So that's what we are about. So you will find that Michelle and I will be working together quite a bit. One will lead sometimes, the other will lead at other times. Okay? So where we're starting today is looking at best practices for remote teaching. Now we're starting here, dumped into remote teaching last academic year. In the second part, of the semester.
If I may
Yes,
interrupt you, Charmaine. All
yes,
right, so
Michelle.
just to let you know, I'll keep track of the chat room and the raising of the hands so that you can
Yes, please.
know. Orville's
Oh,
hand is up.
no, Orville needs to take his hand down, right? He's eating, let him eat.
His mercy.
But
I just want to know if tomorrow's lecture was different from today, or is it a follow-up from today, the one for tomorrow?
you
It's a
see,
follow-up and it's not a lecture.
there you
Well,
go. There you
okay.
go. Michelle, handle him, please. Handle him, please.
So it is indeed a follow-up, but
Right?
and you'll realize that there are some things that come over from what you're doing today, but it's not a
Right.
lecture. It's as practical as possible because we want you to be able to get to do as we do. So it's not a lecture. All right, Orville?
Thank you
That's
very much.
right.
My misuse of the word.
Okay.
That's because he's eating, you see. That is why that happened. But yes, so that's what it is. It's going to be as practical as possible. So if you're coming tomorrow, the questions that you had as you delivered last semester, and think about them, make a note of them, and come with them, right, for discussion and for responses and feedback and so on. And it would be good if you had your computer, your laptop, your device open and ready, especially with our VLE, so that you can see and follow what is taking place and try and imitate the moves. It won't be dancing, but try and imitate the moves. Okay? Did he take his hand down, Michelle?
Yes, his hand is down now.
Wonderful. Right. So this is where we are. So it became very clear very early in the last academic year, semester 2, the second part of semester 2, that the technology would have had to play a greater role in what you did and how you taught. For some people, it had to be exclusively technology driven. And some people were saying that, oh, we're teaching online, and this and that and so on. It had to be pointed out at some point along the way that what you were doing was an emergency thing. Because when you're teaching online, it has to be something that you plan as you would, in your done. So the term that is used is remote teaching, and there are various definitions out there, various explanations of it. I liked this one. It's a temporary shift, right, of delivery to an alternate mode due to the crisis circumstances. And it explains, the use of what kinds of teaching solutions and so on. I've highlighted 2 parts there. I've highlighted the second thing. Once it says that the expectation is that you will return to the original format once the crisis or emergency has abated. Well, you will see that semester 2 of the last academic year ended. The summer came and you were teaching remotely as well. And we're back now at semester 1 of the new 2020-2021 academic year. And it's still an emergency situation because the reason for us moving in this way with such speed not gone at all. In fact, we're at a point now where it's perhaps worse than it was in semester. The crisis is still with us and we have to work with that. Having said that though, and students were understanding for the most part, I gather, last academic year when we had to move to remote teaching. However, I don't know if they'll be so patient or as patient this year because they will say, okay, you've had the time, you've had time to make this better. So as much as we are doing this kind of late, this is the orientation week. It still gives you time to think through what you're doing, to reach out to Michelle or I if you need assistance at this point for this semester towards making the situation better. Any comments there?
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
The the issues from last term still from last semester too and the summer still dogged us in terms of the students still not making that paradigm shift to the fact that they are online, so adjustment is expected of them. We are expected to make adjustment, which we did, but they believe that having paid their money, things should run as is, as normal. I don't know how we're going to go about trying to change that mindset of the student, because I see it coming again for I see it coming again for semester one with the same kind of mindset. Why am I have to do that? Why can't I? And why am I not? And so on and so forth. So I don't know what the university will be doing with respect to ensure, or at least try it, to ensure that there is a change of that mindset in the students.
If I may, that's a very good point, Orville.
Yes, Michelle, please.
And you'll realize that this is not just a UE Mona thing. It's just about right across the board where students think that, oh, but I've paid my money, why can't it be as it was before? I think as the cases grow in Jamaica, they'll realize that they are going to be forced to stay home and to go online. And I think as teachers, as facilitators, we will also have to guide them, because some know a very small percentage, most of them are just as struggling as we are. And so we also have to help them to reach where they want to be. But then I am always reminded that a change in the mindset has to be an individual thing. We can't force people to change their minds. They have to realize the seriousness of it as well and work towards it. We can help as best as we can. So we're gonna be seeing how best we can do our little part to help you, to help them.
Thanks much, Michelle. Thank you so much.
I have a comment. I'm thinking that this might not necessarily be a temporary shift. I think it's just a precursor for how we're going to be teaching in the future. Because in many institutions, they are teaching online or hybrid, you know, or having web enhanced courses. And I think traditionally we haven't been doing that. And I think this is just going to set the tone for how we'll be teaching moving forward. Because after I've set up my classes like this, I think in the future I would want to do a more hybrid approach in teaching in the future. So I think it's more setting the tone for what we're going to do in the future.
Any comment on that, Michelle?
Well, I'm so glad you brought it up, because you're right. I think that's where we're heading. And one of the things that both units, both Charmaine's unit and our unit will be looking at is how to pace several sessions during the semester going forward. So you have a number of sessions going through, because you're right. This is where we're heading. And even if we go back to a campus that has traditional face-to-face classes, we will never be the same. So you're so correct. We will be using mostly online and blended, but we may eventually decide that what we have accomplished and what we have seen and produced is where we want to keep that trend going. And we're here to help you do that as well.
And as a matter of fact, there are people who having seen now how much the technology can facilitate, have already decided that they are not going back to the way they used to do things. They're going to incorporate much more of the tools in how they teach. Also has been pushing for, you know, greater use of blended strategies and online strategies. The campus has been pushing for that. So COVID has provided the kick, you know, that many people needed, because as much as the campus was pushing for it, the sort of how to do it was not there, or the how wasn't there. So the impetus is now there. And so this is where it is, Michelle Black. In truth, that's where it's going. So I am also glad, like Michelle Stewart McCoy, that I think I'm going, Michelle, I'm not going to be calling out your name, so you know, I'm going to say Michelle SK, right?
That's fine. That's
To
fine.
distinguish you from Michelle Black. So this is where it is, you know. So I am glad you raised that, because that is absolutely accurate, that this is where, you know, the campus will be going. And it's why I pointed out at the beginning too, that what we're doing now is for this semester, but for semester 2 and so on, it's going to be much more and kind of, you know, different in terms of the training. So good, we're on track. So I am talking about, we're talking today about, you know, good practices and so on, how, you know, how you can do better in this period here of, you know, remote delivery. The first thing is that you have to plan, right? As you have had to plan, you would have had to plan for, you know, your face-to-face courses. You have to plan for this. And in planning, yes, you know, we're using a lot more of the technology, but the pedagogy is still the most important thing, right? The fact that you are teaching is what is most important. What you're doing is teaching. It's not, you're not there just to, you know, show the latest tool, technology tools and this, that, and the other. The technology is the servant. It still is the servant, right? It is what you're doing as a teacher, those techniques, those strategies that are still most important. And so you have to think about what tools or combination of tools you will use to deliver the course, right? That's your next thought in you know, rethinking the course that you were teaching face-to-face. What are the tools, or what combination of tools will you use to deliver the course? Now, don't try, a caveat, don't try to use too many tools, right? Remember, we have all sorts of issues, or Bill pointed out some of them right there, but there are others. So don't try to use too many tools. One thing is that you have to have a synchronous tool and an asynchronous one in the setting that we're in, right? And so your asynchronous tool is the one that the campus provides. That is our VLE, right? That's your asynchronous tool. Now, there are people who are proficient in several others and who can, you know, who know how to work with the asynchronous tool and use other tools to improve on different things that they want to do. If you are like that, it is possible, I would say, to go with more than 2, right? However, you have to remember that you have to take your students along with you. It's never, again, it's not about the technology, right? It's about the teaching the students. So if you are proficient with others and they serve the pedagogy, well, yes, add them, but make sure that it is within that asynchronous tool, which is our VLE, right? The synchronous tool is one of them, at least, is embedded in our VLE, and that is Blackboard Collaborate. Is that what your faculty recommends and prefers? Is it Blackboard Collaborate?
It is, but I find it too difficult to navigate. I find Zoom to be better, so I just use that. I asked at the beginning of the semester, they had a training, but it was too large, like 100 people, and there wasn't enough time to ask questions. So to just get quickly going, I just use Zoom.
Okay. All right. So Michelle will be dealing with Blackboard and our VLE tomorrow. Yes, Arville?
There are issues though when you go for the alternative. So first thing first, there may be people in the logon who not following you with respect to what you mean by synchronous and asynchronous. I'm not being facetious, but you assume that people know what I mean by synchronous and asynchronous. Some of us know. I can't guarantee that everybody knows. So it's best that you define it. And why is it that BBC will have synchronous and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. So I would suggest you explain just to ensure that we're all on the same boat. Now, when you use, so the university expect the student to log on to BBC, and then we use Zoom. You run into all kind of problems with the Zoom. It works for some people, but I'm saying unless you have a Zoom account, you keep have to log off every 40 minutes. And so on and so forth. And also too, sometimes for the student to get Zoom is not as easy as the UA one that is already provided. So I'm just raising those issues.
All right. I did define, you probably was sitting on your ears with the food, but I did define because I did point out that the synchronous tool allows you to operate in to have real time meetings, right? So you are talking and you're getting a response at the same time. That right. Blackboard allows you to do that, and Zoom does that as well. Yeah. Skype does that as well. Google Meet does that, and a ton of other tools out there that do that. What the university has paid for right across the institution, all the other campuses as well, is Blackboard Collaborate, right? So the expectation is that, that is what is to be used across the board for a lot of reasons. And so your asynchronous tool, which is the one, which is our VLE, it does have a feature, but nobody really uses that on things that take place outside of a common space and time. So that's the difference.
The issues are, Charmaine, is if the university so we should use BBC and we operate outside, then there's a legal issue that has to be taken into account for students who may think that they have been wronged by the system or whatever, and so have a legal issue with the university. And so, I mean, until these things happen, we don't see any problem with it. But I'm just saying, for those who will go outside of what the university provide, that there's a legal framework that must be taken into account. Just like when you have an exam set up in OER VLE and the student email it to you, one of them customer had written this semester, where I saying, I can't take the one that you emailed to me. The university need a copy of it online in a system that they can refer to it to see if I was in favor of you or against you, as the case may be. And she said she don't understand why I haven't sent it to me. I'm still bothering her about it, and so on and so forth. I said, but the university, the exam section must have access to it. They don't have access to my email. So these are some of the legal issues that must be taken into account when we decide that we are going alternate to what the university provides.
And I am
All right.
so happy you have mentioned this, Orville. And it also means that when we meet with the students, these are some of the things that these are just basic protocols that you inform them of, you talk them through it, but you also put it in writing somewhere on the page so that they're reminded that it's not that you don't want to use something that's cooler, it's just that the university has said this is the official platform. And even if you use something else to complement it, the official tools are these. And as such, these will be the primary things that we use. So I'm so happy you brought that up.
All right, excellent.
Heather's hand is up, okay.
That's right, Heather is here, I noticed. And she posted in the chat that the faculty expects that it is Blackboard that will be used. I know that there are other parts of the campus community where it is Zoom that is used. And that is why I raise it in the first place, because I know that there are other places where it is Zoom. So Heather,
yes,
go
good
along.
morning. Good morning. I am
Go on, please.
But
Heather,
yes,
please
morning.
speak. Heather, we're not hearing you.
We're here. I'm hearing her.
Morning.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Are you hearing me?
Well,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
hearing
yes.
you.
Yes.
Yes, good morning. What I wanted to say was that Blackboard Collaborate is the tool that we have told the students we'll be using for teaching. The FSS Guild mentioned last semester that some lecturers were using Zoom and that they were having a lot of challenges connecting that way. And so we have given a commitment to be using Blackboard Collaborate, and that's what we expect all lecturers will be using. In fact, this morning I saw an email, a student to the dean complaining that a lecturer has said that he or she would be using Zoom. And so the dean has already written to the respective head of department to just remind them that we are committed to teaching using Blackboard Collaborate. So that's what we're using.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's explicit now. So I hope all the lecturers would get that, the dean's memo on that. Now, as Michelle said, there's no issue with complementing the tools that the university has provided. For example, if you want to have a quick meeting with somebody, you know, there's no reason why you can't use WhatsApp or so. But Michelle and I are at one on this, that the tools that the institution provides are the ones that are to be emphasized for teaching, right? For teaching, right? Good. So we are, so I asked there, what are you comfortable with? You know, the other issue that comes up too, in relation to Zoom and Blackboard and so on, what I have heard is, but in some courses, you know, the students are exposed to Zoom. In some, they're exposed to Blackboard, and it's kind of confusing. There is that kind of thinking as well, but it is, you know, Blackboard, Collaborate, which is what Orville calls BBC. I know BBC to be the British Broadcasting Corporation, but you know, Blackboard Collaborate is what the university supports for synchronous delivery, and for asynchronous delivery, it is Moodle in all its forms, right? And I made a note here on this slide to point out that Skype is not a tool provided by the institution. Our Skype accounts are our personal accounts, yes, we do use it to reach out to colleagues, to students, and so on, but it's not provided by the institution. So there is no, there is nothing, no must and bound and compound, as Jamaicans would say, to use Skype. And see, I asked a question and it was answered that it is Blackboard. That is the synchronous tool. So build your synchronous teaching around that tool, but at the same time, plan with the bandwidth issues and other technology related challenges in mind. Because we all know, I mean, here I am this morning, I've dropped out once. I hope I don't drop out again. But the students also have bandwidth and no width of any kind issues as well. And there are staff, there's faculty who have these problems too. So in planning out your class, bear that in mind, right? So where possible, how you try to mitigate against that is to use the asynchronous technology wherever it is possible, right? So yes, you may have a synchronous session on Blackboard, you may do a synchronous presentation there. Make sure you record it and post it in the relevant place. Have a place for the recordings and so on your course page, right? Post any other presentations and recordings on our VLE, as well as other kinds of resources. You post notes, lectures, activities, podcasts, in structured ways, of course, on your course page. And as Michelle pointed out to me in reviewing my slides, text-based summaries of videos and podcasts in as much as you can, because again, of the bandwidth issues that people face. What it allows you to do, what it allows students to do, is to go in when they have access, when they have data or whatever it is, download and review, study, whatever it is, do whatever they need to do without staying online, right? That's what that facilitates. Questions, comments?
Heather, hand is up, so I'll let her go first.
Heather?
Okay, we're not here now. Okay, well, I'll go until we hear from Heather. That we have to, in our cases, remember the extreme student.
Yep.
Not that they become the norm. Is that Heather? Yeah, on Heather?
Heather?
Yes, I'm on. I had to run out and I just came back. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I
wanted
missed
to
what you
talk?
were saying. What were
Oh,
you saying? Sorry, I didn't take my hand down. Sorry about that.
It's an
Okay.
old hand. That's what
Yes, it's
I
an
thought.
old hand. I'm very sorry. I had to run out to see a student, and so I just.
All right.
I didn't see, Heather, I didn't see if you put lotion on the hands or not, but
Yeah. Yes, they're well lotioned.
All right.
Good.
All right. So I'll just finish. So we need to remember the extreme student. We tend to assume that students have access, constant access to internet and so on. And we keep forgetting that some students, each time that they're going on, they have to purchase it. I remember I being hard on a student. Why didn't you upload the take-home exam by a certain time? And he said to me that I have to make a choice. He had to make a choice between eating one meal for the day and coming online. It never dawned on me that they have those issues. And so he said that he was out of money, and so he must make a decision to eat because he hadn't eaten for 2 days. Because either he will have to eat dinner or something or go online. He chose to eat. I couldn't quarrel with that. I couldn't, and I said, okay, I'll open up the portal and give you time. Tell me when you'll have money to can purchase data so you can upload the exam. And so I work with them and give them time. So I'm just saying that we have to bear in mind the extreme students.
Extreme situation that a student may have. Yes, thanks. I see Samuel's hand is up.
Yes.
I haven't heard
Can
from
you hear me,
Samuel
colleagues?
this
Good
morning.
morning again.
Good morning, Samuel.
Morning, Samuel.
Good. Yeah, it's just personally, I find Blackboard Collaborate to be an excellent tool to use. I think what the faculty needs to determine, I don't know if it can be done today during this session, perhaps not, is to find out what issues people are having with it. Is it setting up the Blackboard Collaborate tool which is causing an issue? Or is it the use of it or a combination of those issues? So we need to look at that. The other thing I would recommend though, for those of us who are already teaching and for those of us who will eventually use Blackboard Collaborate, is that we have to be mindful as to how much bandwidth we use up. So one of the things I do, I deactivate the video feature. So no one needs to see me and I don't need to see anyone, right? And in so doing, within 15 or 20 minutes after I would have ended my class, my 2-hour class, the recording is available. And importantly too, unlike Zoom, all the recordings for all the sessions we do are stored nicely in Blackboard Collaborate, and students can access that easily. So that is one plus for us to use Blackboard Collaborate over Zoom. All right, I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you very much, Samuel.
Saying, yeah.
That's actually 2 very good reasons for using Blackboard. 2 very excellent reasons. And I love that you have indicated from here, because that was one of the things I would have mentioned. If you turn your video off and ask that students turn theirs off as well, there are other ways that you can do a register if your course is one that requires a register. So if you ask them to turn the videos off and you turn your off, maybe just turn it on just for them to see the face at the beginning and that's it. That's a great way. And as you pointed out, it's also available right there. Students can go to the recordings and pull it down whenever you're finished. So that's 2 very good points, Samuel.
Yes, I heard Samuel's point. See, we're talking about the internet issues. Now, if I go down to one of these providers and behave badly and you're here.
Well, when it come out now, we can't hardly hear you.
Don't think love me, right? But I heard Samuel's point.
We lost you for a while.
I heard Samuel's point, and I heard Michelle's response to Samuel, and I fully agree. But you know, there are some colleagues, Michelle said, you know,
all right, colleagues, I'm not so sure what it is she's trying to tell us, but you can realize that she's having some issues with the internet provider, and we really don't want her to go down there to cuss and carry on. So we'll just wait until she comes back in so she can carry on. But following up on the point that Samuel made, it is going to take time for us. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and as such, we will master the tools that we have to use a little at a time. So we aim towards mastery and we work on one thing at a time. Charmaine is back, so I'm going to shut up very soon. But it's not about getting mastery from day one. Even if we play a game, we don't usually end up being a number 1 for all the levels at the end of the day. So this is going to take a little time. Be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself. This is new for most of us. So we will do this one step at a time, okay?
Well, more
Excellent point,
importantly,
Michelle. Thanks.
the gender of the students.
Excellent point. Yep. Yes. So now you're still planning, right? So we talked about all those preliminaries and so on about using Blackboard, which Michelle will come to tomorrow. And so Michelle Black, I think you will feel better after tomorrow about using Blackboard. I feel very strongly that you will, because it's going to be, the focus is going to be different, and you will see the connections better, I think. So what are the goals of the course? Think about it again. I mean, you would have thought about this a zillion times, but think about it again in this context of now having to deliver this course online. There will be some things that you put into it with the assumption that you were going to be in front of the students teaching, or that they were going to be able to go out and do X or Y. What do you want the activities and the experiences and the assessments to achieve? For example, I mean, okay, you said that they were to go out and do an interview, but is that essential really to the outcome or the objective that you want? There is that. Or would you accept the interview as something that was done virtually? And what are the rules and so on for that? What would that be? So it would require that kind of adjustment. It would be good for students to learn that too, right? That's the way of the world. So maybe you should have been teaching that before, Orville. I don't know, right? Could the goal be achieved using a different task or different tasks, right? Think about that.
Yeah,
What topics are better taught in a real-time session? So how are you going to use the time that you have on Blackboard Collaborate? How are you going to use it? What topics are better taught with you there, you know, explaining rather than students reading and trying to figure it out, and as some of them say, bust them head over it, right? Would they need that little leg up from you before, so that you could cover that in the real-time session? What do you consider, or what do you find that they have problems with? And I don't want to hear everything, right? What really is the troublesome knowledge in the course that you feel like you need that real-time discussion and interaction about, right? For those, try and use the synchronous tool as much as is possible. You will find too that from one course to another, it varies, right? It could be that you feel you can get through with 3 or 4 synchronous sessions over the semester. For other courses, it would be more, right? Depending on what it is. I can see the quantitative type courses requiring more time for you to, you know, talk through and, you know, write and show, right? If must be discuss this with students from the beginning, right? During your orientation. And I know this is orientation week. So if you have group tasks, discuss it with them from right up front. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, you have group work and I expect you to do this work in groups. Go through it. This is new to them. This mode of delivery is new to them. Go through with the expectations with them. Please, step by step. If you need help, reach out to Michelle or I in terms of coming up with what you want to say to them, right? So that they know early that they will have to decide on various things. They're going to have to decide on what tools they're going to use for planning meetings, who's going to do what, you know, a whole range of things, right? So think about that. and consider flipping the classroom and using active learning strategies. Now, I know that several of you are already would have already been doing this in the face-to-face setting. So now you're going to be using the tools, the technology tools, to help you to flip the classroom. Now, I'm going to ask Michelle to say a little bit more about flipping the classroom at this point, although we'll be dealing with that separately as we go along, probably tomorrow and at other points in time, in terms of how you flip the classroom online, right?
All right. Thanks, Charmaine. Well, flipping the classroom in the easiest set of terms is simply reversing what we normally do. So traditionally in the face-to-face class, we tend to explain things to the students and we give them an activity or two, but the bulk of what they do as activities are usually done outside of that classroom. The flipped version of it is you give them the readings and the lectures and the information that they need to get outside of the classroom, and in the face-to-face session that you have in your synchronous class, you then do the activities. So that's all there is to it. It's a flip. So what they would normally do as homework and activities at home, they do in the class, and the readings and lectures that we give them in the class, they now do this outside. Of course, it comes with certain set of guidelines and protocol, how to ensure that they actually read the information that you give them or watch the videos or so forth, and how exactly to follow up in the class. But in layman terms, it is simply turning it around so that they do the resource and collect information gathering outside, and in the class, they actually carry out the activities, work out through the problems and so forth. That's all there is to it. Well, when I say it like that, that's all there is to it. And of course, it comes with a couple guidelines and protocols for us to follow.
There you go. So thank you, Michelle, for that. Now, Michelle Black has her hand up.
Yes, I had a question because I think sometimes we forget about the practical courses.
Michelle?
Sometimes. Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
I'm hearing you, Michelle.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I think sometimes we forget about the practical courses that we do have to teach, sometimes the labs. Like, for example, when I teach bar and beverage, or when we have our culinary classes, what we could do and what I had suggested for the curriculum for the online courses is that we can do demos. The students can videotape themselves doing certain activities. So in the synchronous session, the asynchronous session, the synchronous session, you could have those types of activities where, for example, I'll be demonstrating how to make a particular beverage, and then the students can be at home. If they have the ingredients, they can do it themselves. So I think sometimes we have to remember that we have labs and different types of courses, and they can be, some of the activities can be facilitated during these sessions. We don't have to necessarily eliminate it all.
Excellent, excellent. And I think you're right, Michelle. We do tend to forget the practical sessions sometimes, the lab sessions. And interestingly enough, since COVID, we have become so much more creative in how we get students to work through virtual labs. And so you mentioned the demonstration that has been going on, and people have been doing simulations. So you have ready-made simulations that deal with that. So students can follow along as they go. And then of course, my favorite is, because I play games, I love games. I like the idea of games for teaching. I create games so students also work through what it is they want to be doing. So we have to become creative. I love the fact that you do your demo and you have students do their demos. Very good. Very, very good.
Right. And I would have raised that, well, I glanced, I sort of just glanced. I didn't go into it just now. So thanks, Michelle B, for your example. And this is good. You know what too? Sometimes the students themselves, and this is also good, come up with ways and ideas of how to get something done. they can come up with ideas too, and their ideas are based on their own experiences, the tools that they have, and their own interests. So you must encourage that kind of thing also. I had an example out of the nutrition field, where, you know, they say that people, they normally have you students weigh certain foods and so on for nutritional, whatever it is in nutrition. That's something you can do at home. You don't have to do it in a classroom. You know, it can be you make a record, you record your findings and so on. So yes, you know, I fully supported. And the third point on this slide is to build in opportunities for engagement and interaction. So look out for the places where you can. Opportunities have to be, don't have to be lecturer student or um, it doesn't have to be. There are building opportunities for student to student interaction, as you should in your regular face-to-face classroom, and for engagement, student engagement with the content could also as well. But these are the key things to make sure that you have in place in your online spaces. Now, I've been in this line of work for so many years, that I think I'm right in believing that you spend a lot more time, you have to spend a lot more time preparing for online delivery and actually delivering than you do face-to-face. Face-to-face, yeah, and you also have your 2 hour or 3 hour slot for teaching, and whatever, the 2 hours or whatever for tutorial, and that's pretty much it. You're going to find, especially in this time, or you may have found from last semester, that you spent more time because you have to do a lot more hand holding of your students who are, you know, they're having a hard time as well, not only financially, but, you know, intellectually grappling with all of this in the same way that we are grappling with it. So what has it done to your time, right? I hear people say, you know, I can't, and I say it myself, I can't tell one day different from the other nowadays, because each day just merges into the other. It seems like, you know, I just going through like a zombie sometimes, because everything seems so fluid, right? There's a blurring of the lines between one day and the next, and one task and the next, and so on. And the best way to manage things like that is to develop routines and schedules for yourself and to stick to them. Now, to say to stick to them, I know you may say, you know, but say, she can always say that. But you have to work towards it, right? You may not achieve full compliance for yourself just now, but work towards staying consistent, even with the times that you can schedule for yourself. There are some times that you can't schedule, right? They're scheduled by the institution. But the times that you schedule for yourself, when do I start marking in the morning when it's that time? When do I start? How long do I spend marking? When do I take a break? What do I do when I take that break? Do I take a nap? Do I go for a little walk in my little complex? Do I walk up and down the stairs in the house? Do I watch something for half an hour just to take a break, right? These are important. The self-care is important. So, I mean, which love it. And you make students aware of the times when you are available and you stick to those times, right? Put it on your schedule in our VLE, right? These are my consultation times. So maybe in the face-to-face setting, noons on XY days, perhaps in this setting, you could set different times, meaning one in a daytime and one perhaps later in the afternoon or evening, right? Use different time periods to facilitate the students, because again, as Orville pointed out, they also have challenges in terms of having data, when they can get data, when they can purchase, those kinds of things. So if you make the times a little bit more flexible, it may be helpful there as well. Any questions? Sandra? I haven't heard Sandra at all.
I've just been typing in the chat. I'm
Okay,
better
I
at
see.
writing than I'm at speaking.
Okay, and I see that we've been joined by the dean, who came in unannounced.
And I was hoping to remain.
He
Do you
was
have
hoping to
anything
remain unannounced, like seriously.
to say to us?
He was hoping to remain unannounced.
Snuck in.
Good,
No,
good,
well,
good.
you would have to change your name. Should have come in from the beginning. You should have come in
I
from the
think you'll have a
beginning.
change in ballot.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just passing through. I'm thankful to Charmin and Michelle for organizing this session and for hosting it. Thankful for the persons who are in attendance. Just passing through. I recognize that the numbers are a little bit low. I just sent a message to all heads encouraging them to encourage colleagues to attend the session on Wednesday, but it was expected the notice went out late.
Late,
So we're
right, right.
attendance in the Wednesday session.
Right. But at the same time, we are having good discussion, so it works. And I think it helps. And I think that the colleagues who are here will engage their colleagues in further discussion too.
And if
They
I may
are like that.
And if I may add, Charmaine,
Yes.
as I had mentioned to you, there's a little document that covers all of these areas that I'm working on that I'll ask you to review before we send out, so staff can also have that to hold on to as well and circulate among themselves.
Right. Good. So Dean, there are two of us now in the area, so it makes it easier for us to work and to collaborate. So we are moving along.
Excellent. And welcome to Michelle. So now I know there are two, we can pressure you some more.
Oh my goodness.
Well, just if you
Thanks for the welcome, Dean.
I don't know
we
if it's
observe ourselves.
what
What
Charmin.
Charmaine's
Yes.
internet has been acting up, and you know, it gets a little bit frustrating sometimes.
So here we are.
I'm glad this is happening, because it means that this is a reality that we will be facing from time to time, whether on a one-on-one session or in the class with other students. So we also have to think about how do we work around little things and hiccups like these.
And what our students are facing.
Like that. And this, yes. And so that is why the two of us have, Michelle has the presentation also, so it follow. We figured out 20 odd years ago. So, and the other thing is to try for both of you not to be in the same place. at one time, because the likelihood of the two of you losing connection unless is decreased. So strategies, colleagues. So in terms of office hours now, right? Set your virtual office hours. As we said, okay, the faculty is using Blackboard, right? You can use Blackboard quite effectively for your office hours. There are breakout rooms in Blackboard. I mean, I know people who use it quite well and who are comfortable with it. I don't know if any of you here do it, but I know that people use it. They set up the times. Each student knows when he or she is to have his or her consultation time. They know how much time it is, whether it's, I don't know, 30 minutes or whatever it is. And they're set up in the breakout rooms, and the lecturer just moves them over each, at the appropriate time. So you can do it. And it means that it makes life easier for you, right? Nobody has to see that you have on your pajamas or whatever it is, right? Or that, what you're sitting down eating in front of you, right? So long as you're not chewing while you're talking. And consider, you can also, if it is large groups that you have, large classes, consider meeting with small groups in that consultation time, right? You could, if they have, specific problems with the same kind of thing, you meet with a group to deal with that specific thing. You don't know what can emerge from that. It may show you how you need to make adjustments to whatever else you do and however else you do it. So it could work out to be a good thing to meet with them in that way, right? And the cross-fertilization of them talking to one another is also good in that smaller group, right? And as I said, use the waiting room feature. In Zoom, it's called it's a waiting room. In Blackboard, it's the breakout rooms, right? And you set the amount of time that you will be spending depending on the nature of the issue, right? It may be something troublesome, and we were talking about troublesome knowledge. So, it could be something troublesome. You may need more than 15 minutes and so on to work on it. Now, what is a large class for you? I remember having a discussion with somebody in this room here, somebody called Orville Beckford, and I asked, what is a large class? Is it 100? He told me to guess, and I think I guessed something like, what, 200 or something like that. And he laughed. He laughed me almost to scorn. Orville, what is a large class?
There's a formal large class for the university, more than 100. More than 100, I think 150. But in sociology, especially, and government and econ have it as well. For the first level courses, we have huge streams. So, for example, one of my sociology stream is about 400 or 450 students.
Okay, so that is a large class for you. In another faculty, a large class could be the 100 or so.
20.
No, right? That's not a large class. So, if you have a large class like that, consider using group teaching and pairing strategies, right? We will, be mining down into things like that, right? But you already use groups face to face, so continue, to think about and try to use it as much as possible. But as I say, we'll be mining down into things like that, how good strategy for group teaching and what tools and how you use and so on for things like that. So, but consider using group teaching strategies. Don't make the groups too large. you can do all sorts of things. You can put, set up the assignment in such a way that one student is responsible for X or Y and for reporting those kinds of things, so that you're not getting the 400 or however many reports, different kinds of strategies. And Michelle had talked about the flipped classroom strategies before. Provide small assignments or activities along the way. Don't wait for a big thing to come down the line to weigh you down when you are to mark and to give feedback, right? So small things along the way could also be helpful, and using the discussion board for the small things, the small assignments and small tasks is useful for feedback, right? Letting them post and giving feedback. So involve your students more, right? Step to the side a bit more, be more of the guide on the side. You know that old expression, whether you are the guide on the side or the sage on the stage. You step to the side some more when you have large classes, but make sure that you don't leave the students behind in doing so. Any comments, queries, any comments, Michelle?
Well, I just wanted to add that in addition to these, for your large classes, and especially since we are transitioning to fully online or blended, one of the things that you could also consider, and we are encouraging you, is to have a percentage. You probably will have to have discussion, a percentage for what we call engagement tasks. So these are little activities that they do throughout the semester that have a grade attached. And for these, you could use more auto-rated type activities, meaning when they do that, it is marked by the system because you would have input the responses. And so that would reduce the amount of marking that you would do, especially in a 400 plus type class. So that is something that you could also consider in addition to the others.
Good. Michelle Black pointed out that she uses quizzes, right? Which comes back to what Michelle SK has just said, using those kinds of things. Now, what you are calling the engagement, Michelle, is what they call participation, I believe. It is a term that I am not fond of. I prefer to just say what the specific thing is, that it is a discussion, or it is, as you say, engagement activities. Right. Those are the terms I prefer, I guess, because of, the way I look at it and the way you look at it. So, but we will come to things like that as we go through with the faculty. Yes, Orville, you are going to say something?
Yes, that I figure you will reach to it eventually. With respect to when it comes to final assessment and how we deal with it, given the fully online thing that we have, and tying that with respect to the requirements of the university, with respect to students who have not paid, and so on and so forth. It creates a number of issues, but I figure over time you will deal with it. With respect to, because for example, the last semester 2, the university made it okay that even if you owe, you could then do the final exam. We don't know if that will be the same again this semester. And also we then had to be careful this semester, because if university is saying that if the student is owing, then they can't do the final exam, it means then we can't allow the grade to be seen when the student is finished, where we're doing a proctored MCQ. And so these are just some of the issues that will come up that we have to start think about it now. We have already, some of us already set up our course outline and indicate on the course outline what are the assessment, what we now have to take into account good strategies to use on your term here in terms of how do we walk between the range of adhering to the university's guideline with respect to students registration, those who pay, don't pay, and also how I set up my exam, my quizzes, and so on.
Right. Excellent. Orville, we're you listening when Michelle and I were talking? You were listening to us. We were talking about assessment. Were you eavesdropping?
Yes, I
It
was
seems so because we're not covering that today, but certainly the whole matter of the yes, the whole matter of the assessments has to be taken separately. I mean, it's an area that is very interesting, and to sort of take the university's guidelines and policies into consideration when moving things into into online assessment, you know. So yes, we are coming to that, but we won't cover that today in terms of, you know, strategies for what we're doing now. But certainly we will come to something to do with that before, you know, it gets to the point where you have to submit your assessments and so on, the actual papers and so on. Any other comments, queries? Okay, now this is my next slide. Now this is so critical from the beginning to the end. I mean, I cover it here at the end in terms of sequencing, but it is critical. It is the underpinning. It is the thing that is going to make the students have a good experience or not, and that will make life more or less stressful for you. Communicating, keeping the lines of communication with the students open all along the way, right? Set out your expectations in writing. I know that you would have been told so over the years that you've been using our VLE, that you must put up a welcome message and you know, so on, right? But that's not it. That's not it, right? But it is key. You set out your expectations in writing where they can see it. Now, you post a welcome message as well. Yes, we know that. You can post text, you can post audio. If you want to DJ something or whatever it is, it's up to you. Just make sure that you welcome the students to the course, right? In this time here of uncertainty and challenges, make sure that you communicate that, you know, you understand that we are all in a difficult and uncertain period. So that means you, the teacher, as well as the student, right? We're all in this period and we're all in it together, and you are committed to helping them to succeed, right? And to achieve their goals. I have a letter drafted, right? I will send it through and you can use it in any way you like. I mean, adjust it however you please, add to it, subtract from it, change the language, but cover the areas, right? It may not sound like something you would write, so make it sound like what you would write, right? It's just that to get the ideas down, right? And use the announcements forum at least once weekly to outline the week's expectations. Okay? All right. When you can, post directly on the page. Now, Michelle has something to say about that. I would say, you know, post directly on the page, right, when you can, so that, because it's hard for some people, and as you say, if students have data challenges, if they look on the page, you know, it's good for them to be able to see at a glance exactly what, you know, and plan for when they're coming back in, when they have data, you know, what they have to do when they come back in, right? Michelle has something to say there as well.
I do. Okay.
I
Well,
thought you did. No,
One of
remember
the things,
along the lines that we were talking about this morning, which
yes.
you would cover afterwards.
Right. For the critical information that you want your students to see right there and then, one of the things that we could use in the Orville are what they call blocks. So blocks are a set of tools which when you implement them, they turn up either to the left or the right. So you may see things like news announcement, upcoming calendar, those are all blocks. But there is one that's called the HTML block, and we'll go into details more when we're looking at sessions tomorrow and onward. But the HTML block is a blank block. So you can put the critical information that you want in and just simply shift it to where you want the students to see. The experts will tell you that we read left to right in this hemisphere. So you can put it to the left, so it's one of the first things that the students see. And although you're going to be writing on the page, try not to put too much of the written text on the page, because then we end up with something that they call the scroll of death.
Right.
And we're trying to avoid that scroll of death where you're just scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. So the blocks make it useful there. So we'll talk some more and we'll work through creating blocks for different teaching purposes.
Right. I was showing somebody recently to use the calendar, you know, in our VLE to her advantage. And you're right, the information that I post directly on the page is key information, not your lecture notes, right? It's just the key information. You have an assignment due, even though they'll see it, they should see it if you use the calendar and so on. You know, bear this in and do X or Y. Just another way of keying students in, right? Encourage virtual study groups, right? I know that students use WhatsApp a lot and other media, right? Encourage them as they would to, you know, I would meet under the tree in their study groups or do it virtually, right? It helps when they support one another outside of the support that you give, right? But as I say, consider the access issues. You know, you can suggest it to them that they set up virtual study groups. It could be that they determine what they use to do that. But you can give them the idea if it hasn't occurred to them. For some, it is like second nature now. That's what they do, WhatsApp groups, and use it, you know, in it to support their learning, right? And do you really want to use email? Yes,
Back
Michelle?
to the virtual study groups. Another thing that a number of my students have been doing is, because, you know, of the data issue, what some of them have been doing is using the text messaging more. So even if they don't have data in order to respond via WhatsApp, they can text each other. So they have these little ways and means of also using the text messages to contact each other. So you can encourage them and pull from them to other ways and means that they can communicate with each other. Because I'm sure that now that everybody is forced to this online space, you'll find that your students have become also so very creative with how they get and give information.
Oh yes, that is very true. I see it here, right here in front of me. Um, no, do you really want to use email to communicate with students all the time? I raised that here. I raised it with another group, and it turned out that that, you know, that group we're trying to find a kind of solution for them, because they have different like groups or, you know, within the department for, you know, this kind of course and this course, all in the same discipline, right? So it's tons of email for the coordinators to handle. Do you really want it like that, or can you use our VLE in some way to receive the messages. Consider using the help or the queries forum. Encourage students to use those spaces, you know, to send you messages. It means though that you have to check. You have to make sure to check, right? So that they don't put messages there and they're waiting several days and you don't answer, right? Because then that defeats the purpose. That is when they bombard your email because they're not getting the responses, right? And while you're, well, I wasn't able to put up my rules. I have my rules, you know. Keisha can tell you that I have my rules. Mr. Beckford, Dr. Beckford, I can hear you. Mute your mic. Mute your mic. For live sessions, the synchronous sessions, I think it's good to outline the rules, right? Let them know that they're to raise their hand, turn off the mic, or better yet, you set it to have the mic and video off on entry. That is if you were using Zoom, right? But let them outline the rules, right? Because I've found over the years that you spend a lot of time. We can spend a lot of time, up to 15 minutes and so on, out of the teaching time for people to sort of get settled. So outline the rules and reinforce them each time you meet, right? Eventually, they'll get it and it, you know, it will sink in eventually, right? And make use of the audio as much as possible for the synchronous sessions. We talked about that over the video, right? Don't emphasize the video too much, right? Maybe at the beginning to show your face and turn it off, right? Work with the audio. Use the features of the technology for writing. For example, you know, what's possible in Blackboard for writing on the word, right? And wrap up by giving feedback. Make sure all the time to give feedback. Don't just, I mean, sometimes you may forget, but don't just leave it hanging, right? So when you plan through your delivery, put that in, that you're going to give feedback as the last thing that you do, right? After presentations and so on, right? So make sure that you do those things when you're using the synchronous tools or you're using Blackboard. For our VLE, use as much as possible the discussion forums for questions and responses and feedback, right? What I am saying here certainly is, this is the way of the future for you. So ease yourself into it, right? Use the discussion forums along with the synchronous tools as much as you can. Strategize on giving feedback, right? Especially when you have these large guys on giving feedback, but worse when you have the large groups. Read through the responses. You don't have to reply to each and every one individually, right? You can do a response to the entire topic, right? And in doing that response, you touch on the areas of the strong points that were brought out by students, what they may have missed in their responses. You may point them to a particularly strong response, you know, that you say, you know, Stefan gave a good response to this matter. So read what Stefan said, you know, things like that. So those are the kinds of things, ways in which you can, you know, minimize the help to reduce the time you spend just clicking and responding and saying, oh yes, and, you know, giving, you know, the same kind of feedback over and over. do a considered response, and then, you know, take yourself offline, do the response, and then post that and point it out to students. Say, I have responded to this in whatever form, okay? And encourage students to interact with their peers in the asynchronous space, right? In our VLE, encourage them to interact with one another. And as we had said before, post recordings of the synchronous sessions on the course page. Any other PowerPoints or PDFs, you know, post them there. But make sure you post them in you know, sensible and sort of logical ways. But I certainly won't forget to raise that tomorrow. And Orville had raised this last one, the submission of assignments through our VLE. And that's for accountability reasons, right? And we know, though, that access to the online course will depend on students' registration and clearance, right? Now, this I think this is my last slide. The accessibility issues are coming more and more to the fore for us. As I walk around the physical campus, I see students, more and more students in like wheelchairs, more and more visually impaired students. Well, I can't tell who is hearing impaired necessarily, but I know that there are students with hearing impairment. There are also students with other kinds of you know, challenges, perhaps some kind of learning, you know, disability, and well, you know, or some kind of learning issue. It could be dyslexia and so on. So more and more students are coming into the space, right? So the accessibility issue becomes more and more important. I need to speak to the director of the center, Office of Student Support Services, I think is the name of it, OSSD. I need to speak to the director of the center, because what arose in a previous session that I did was that a lecturer said it was not until 2 hearing impaired students turned up in her class that she was aware that that she would have these students. It wasn't until they turned up. And so, of course, she was unprepared for dealing with them. And this was a face-to-face, right?
You know,
now, I am not sure who.
You know why that?
If I know what?
You know why? Yeah,
why?
Because the student didn't officially register with that section of the university to indicate that they are students with disability. A number of them don't do it for fear of I don't know what or whatever it is. And when that is not done, then they turn up in the class, and like I'm in a class one day and say somebody just come and stand up beside me. And I'm saying, Lord, what up now? And then he started to make signs. Only to realize that there was a hearing impaired student in the class. I didn't know, nobody said anything to me. In fact, I almost ran off the stage. He just came and stood up beside me and started to make and signals. I didn't know if he was going for a gun, signaling to somebody to shoot. No, this is a man. Whatever, I wasn't so sure. And so, so you need to say to the students in the first class that if they are hearing impaired student or visual impaired, kindly go register with that section. The I forget the name of the section, Shami, and the age beating me. But
yes,
right beside Jamaica National.
OSSD.
Office of Student Services. Register, because then they will
OSSD.
When that is done, I get an email saying that you have such and such a student in your class, so kindly make arrangement. Because until then, you don't know.
May I also add something else? There are some students that I have found that their challenges, I'm not sure if we're supposed to say handicap or impairment, so I'm using challenges. Their challenges are not as severe as other students.
Right.
And so they are reluctant for several reasons. They don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want people to know that they have this, which they call disability. And so they don't report it. Even if they register, and especially if they don't, in that first orientation session that you mentioned, Orville, and throughout, remind them that these are little ways that you can make the information easier for you. You can make the text bigger, you can zoom. So you can just tell them you can use this particular software. Also help them, because some of them will think that, oh, I'm not really blind. You know, they can't see nothing, but they say, I'm not really blind. But you would still have to carry out your role in informing them that these are some of the things that you do. And remember, you need to register with that particular office that you're talking about.
Then there's another part to it as well. When it comes to sitting examination, if they have disabilities of any form, including learning disability, the OSS will make arrangements for them to sit the exam in a particular format. One student, after she failed, she came to me and said that if I noticed you only finish 1 page for each question because time ran out. I said, how come? She said that she have a writing disability. One of her writing hand was broken years ago, and so she can't write very fast. So I said, did you inform the university? No, she didn't. She didn't think it was necessary. Well, I said, well, you plan to then fail all the exams them like this, because we mark what we see. I don't know that you have a writing disability why you only finish 100, didn't finish a full page of answering a question. What she had made sense, you know, but it just stopped at a point. She said that she had a writing disability. I said, contact the OSS, because if not, I'm going to fail with every course that you only give me Arum Scarum for each response. That's when she went and registered, and they make arrangements for someone to write for her while she talk the answer. Oh, gosh.
I know this may not be relevant here. Well, it's relevant, but it may not be the place for us to flesh it out. But as you were talking, Orville, in addition to all of this, when we're setting up quizzes and assignments for students to do, bear in mind time. So you may need to add, if a test is usually say 30 minutes, you may need to add another 10 minutes to take into consideration typing speed, to take into consideration internet speed, that sort of thing. So we'll flesh it out in another session, but as you were speaking, that also came to take into consideration age. So all of these things we need to bear in mind.
Yep. There you go. There you go. There you go. So, but the one, well, she have every right to pick on you.
I'm not picking on you,
I will,
Orville.
well, I have his number, so I'm going to call him, because what I want to be sure of is what, you know, how it works, you know. Kimberly says here that the Office of Student Services and Development will route it to the Office of Special Student Services. And she has given the name for the contact person here, Ms. Sharmali Cardoza. She has put that in the group chat. Thank you, Kimberly, for that information. So, you know, so it means that we have to be much more inclusive and be much more, I mean, in the online environment now, Orville, if you don't have the people in front of you, you are a bit safer. Nobody is going to come up to you and you do have to make to run, you know, because they're not going to shoot you in that way. But, you know, you have to be aware still, you know. Can you imagine, you know, as Michelle said, there are these other challenges that are not as evident, right? Yes. It could, as it could be for writing, you know, with by the hand, then it can also be challenging to type, right? Yes. It could move slower. So how do we know, you know, how do we know that we have a student or students with these kinds of challenges in the class? If they don't register with OSSC, don't know how. Anyway, I'm going to talk to OSSD about this, just to be able to get a sense of what the process is supposed to be and what OSSD has available. And then we can take it from there in terms of what we suggest and recommend for, students have when you have such students in your class in the virtual classroom, right? But as we say here, for people who have visual impairments and so on, you can recommend and suggest that, they use larger text where possible and zoom in. Well, I mean, I don't know if it is age or whatever it is, but for a number of years now, I have decided that, something, I am going to take in front before. So long before I needed anything like that, I started to increase the size of the Word documents, the page on the text on the Word document, from the Zoom from 100% to 150. Well, thank God I'm still at 150, having, taken in front before years ago. But so that is what where we be going with that. And this, I think this is the last slide. And we had sort of talked about it before, but manage your time. And this is about you now. This is about you. Orville Beckford, you raised your hand. I see that I get a notice that you raised your hand.
Yes,
Go ahead.
just on the last point that you're making. So what I do now for my assessment, there is a section in the examination only container for you to give information to students. So what I would put in there is that for those of you who have challenges, kindly contact me outside of this forum, and whether via email, so I can discuss your challenges, just to let them know that we are making arrangement for them. And so I would put up a notice that for those who are having challenges or will have challenges, kindly contact me beforehand, or the examination sections arrangement can be made for them. That's it.
So how soon is that container? When is that container available?
The container is available close to exam, but you also have other areas on the OER VLE where you can post that information. I post it very early in the course, like at the beginning, that those who have special needs, kindly let me know from early. But I keep posting it throughout. But I also make an effort to post it in the exam container.
Okay. Hello, I see various names here who we hadn't welcomed. Welcome all, although we're almost at the end. So I'm sorry about that. Manage yourself and the time you spend on the screen, right? Manage the screen and screen time. It affects the eyes, it affects the brain, it affects concentration, it affects the entire body. We know, I feel like people who are in this room would be able to say, they did not realize how much it took out of them to do things in this way. If you have 3 online meetings for the day, you are worn out by the time it's over. You may not have felt exactly this way in the physical, if you were in a physical setting, but it does take a toll on you to work in this way consistently in that way, right? So please try and manage your time, and let students know when you will be available to them. Set a maximum time for the synchronous sessions, right? Do you want 3 hours, including the time it takes to settle down in the front, like 15 minutes? Because as I said, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it can be even more, right? But it improves over time, it improves, right? So when you're setting the time, set up with that in mind. perhaps if you want 2 hours for the time that presentations take place and so on, if you give it 2.5 hours, so that you have that half an hour, in the front. Like if you want to start at 2, for example, set it for 1:30, right? So that students can come in before, fiddle with the mic, fiddle with the audio, make sure that things are working and so on for them, right? So that when you start, you don't have to be stopping so many times. And how much time are you giving for student presentations? Be reasonable, right? Don't say half an hour or some such thing. Just be reasonable, but let students know that it means that they have to come in prepared, right? To do the presentations that they would have known about. And just manage the fluidity of the day that I talked about, right? The day is very fluid. Just manage it by taking breaks and so on. That is important when you're teaching remotely. And that is what I have to say to you today. We'll have more to say to you when next we meet tomorrow, if you come for the session on actually linking the tools to the pedagogy, right? And those tools will be Blackboard Collaborate and our VLE. I don't know if Michelle has anything that she wants to say now, or if there are any questions or comments in the chat that have not been acknowledged or that you would like us to talk about, because we did set this, so we have a little time.
Well, I
And
noticed
so
that
thank you,
Michelle,
colleagues, for coming.
okay,
Michelle Black, right.
Right. And I think that this is also something that we could look at. I have nothing more to add. Charmaine, this has been great, very comprehensive, and the interaction from the staff has been wonderful. And we just hope that this is going to be a learning experience for us, and we get better and better at what we do. Somebody noted that she wants to be an awesome virtual teacher, and we all should be striving to be that awesome virtual teacher. And so one of the things that I want to say, colleagues, is that
Sandra.
help each other. From listening, I realize that some persons seem to have a better handle of this than some, and so reach out to your colleagues as well. So while we are helping students, it's more than just train the trainer and so forth. It's also reaching out as a human being to another human being and helping. So thank you very much for having me as well, and I look forward to the semester and the years, helping us to make online teaching and learning, or remote teaching and learning, a better one for all of us.
Thanks. Right. I see Michelle Black is asking for a session on designing assessments for remote teaching. Well, yes, we did. You, Michelle, were probably not listening like Orville was listening, eavesdropping when Michelle and I were planning last week, because yes, we do have that in mind. We do have that in mind. And colleagues, you are very welcome. You are most welcome.
I noticed you have ignored the fact that sitting down for long hours give us circulation issues and send some of us to the acupuncture. And I think the university should pay me for my acupuncture fee of $6,000.
Well, I think the university provides you, they do help you. They help you, they give you a job. So,
But thank you very much.
So if there are no more questions.
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
I really enjoyed the session. It was crystal clear.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And tomorrow will be good.
What time we start tomorrow?
It's in the afternoon. It's
Okay.
afternoon. And that's 3 hours.
Oh,
Right?
nice. So if you have
Yes.
lunch and breakfast first.
Yes. And you must think about the questions and so on, the things that you encountered last semester and so on.
Well, I'm still encountering them, so I don't have to think long hard about them.
Good. So bring them to the session tomorrow so that, you know, we can go through those. So make sure you have
Okay.
your computer there with you as well.
And as Orville said, carry your lunch and your breakfast because it's going to be hands-on. It's not so much
There you
listening, but we're going to be doing this as we go along.
That's right. There you
Excuse me,
go.
colleagues, I really have to go. I have a
Yeah.
meeting with HR, which I have been
Oh,
holding
Lord.
on to the end. So I will see you tomorrow, all things being equal.
Yes. Okay. Thank you
Colleagues,
very much. Yes?
colleagues, before we go, I'd just like to make one quick comment, which I actually dropped in the chat room. It's perhaps too late to do this now for this activity for the remainder of the week. But perhaps in the future, what we could do is to use Blackboard Collaborate for sessions such as the one we're currently having. You see? So we want all the faculty to use Blackboard Collaborate, but yet we're having a meeting this morning in Zoom. You see, we must practice what we preach. So that's the last point I wish to make. But good session. I'm not sure I'll be available for the remainder of the week, but let's see how it goes. Tomorrow I have to teach at 9.
So no, I think it's a good idea to have meetings. I was just saying that it's a great idea to have meetings using the Blackboard Collaborate because we want people to get to use them. However, for tomorrow's session, we will continue with the Zoom because in sharing my Blackboard screen to show you the Blackboard screen, there will be a loop. So it's going to be very hard for you to see because there are going to be several recurrences of the same thing if I'm in Blackboard using Blackboard.
Yeah.
So, but very good point. If we're going to use it, get used to the thing, we have to use it.
Yes, I mean, that is a good point. So down the line, Samuel, you'll see that we will be using, you know, Blackboard. But Samuel, I would love you to be able to come, whether tomorrow afternoon or Thursday, for those practical sessions, because you as you know, you would have much to share, I know, as somebody who has been using the tool.
Okay, and let's see how it goes.
Yes, okay. Well, colleagues, enjoy your lunch.